For centuries, the HFY Dominion ruled the galaxy with absolute power. Their fleets crushed all opposition, their technology unmatched by any other race. Countless species had surrendered before them, forced into servitude or wiped out entirely. The Dominion believed they were unstoppable. At the heart of their empire, on the massive capital world Sci-Fi Prime, the High Council of the Dominion gathered in their grand chamber. Towering holographic displays floated above them, showing the galaxy as a vast sea of stars, nearly all under their control. High Lord Velcor, the supreme commander of the Dominion's military, stood before the council. His armored form radiated confidence, his deep red eyes glowing under the dim lights of the chamber. He addressed the assembled leaders with his usual authority. "The last of the Kelvani resistance has fallen," he announced. "Another world now belongs to us." The council members nodded in approval. The Kelvani had fought bravely, but had ultimately been no match for the Dominion's war machine. No species ever was. Velcor continued, "With this, our rule extends to the farthest edges of the known galaxy. There are no enemies left who dare challenge us." The council was satisfied. Another conquest, another victory. It was routine. The galaxy belonged to them. But then, something changed. A new report flashed onto the central display, a distress signal from Veltraxis 9, a minor outpost world at the edge of Dominion space. The transmission was garbled, filled with static and broken words. "Under attack. Unknown vessel. Impossible power. We cannot." And then silence. The council chamber fell quiet. Velcor frowned. No one had ever attacked a Dominion world like this before. Not in centuries. "Who dares?" one of the council members asked. "Pirates. Rebels." Velcor's second-in-command, Admiral Xaran, shook his head. "The scans show something different. It is not a pirate fleet. It is not any known enemy." The holographic display shifted, revealing the last recorded image from Veltraxis 9. A single, massive warship floated above the ruined planet, its dark metal hull reflecting the dim light of a dying sun. It was unlike anything the Council had ever seen. There were no familiar energy signatures, no markings that indicated an empire or faction. It was unknown, and yet it had annihilated a Dominion fleet in minutes. A nervous murmur spread through the chamber. Velcor clenched his fists. Where did it come from? Xaran hesitated before answering. "We don't know. It appeared from deep space. Our records show no previous encounters with this vessel or its kind." Another council member leaned forward. "Have we received any communication from them?" Xaran nodded slowly. "Yes. One transmission. It was brief." The holographic display flickered again, and an audio recording played. The voice was deep, calm, and filled with an unshakable confidence. "This is the Terran warship Nemesis. This world belongs to you no longer." Silence filled the chamber. Terran. The word meant nothing to them. There was no record of any race by that name in the entire history of the Dominion. "Impossible," Velcor muttered. "Whoever they are, they will regret this mistake." He turned to Admiral Xaran. "Deploy the second fleet. I want this warship destroyed, and I want answers. No one attacks a Dominion world and survives." Xaran bowed his head. "As you command, my lord." Within hours, the second fleet, one of the most powerful armadas in the galaxy, was mobilized. Hundreds of warships, battlecruisers, and planetary assault carriers jumped to light speed, heading straight for Veltraxis 9. The Dominion believed this would be like any other battle. They had no idea what awaited them. Far beyond their understanding, in the cold depths of space, the Terran warship Nemesis watched and waited. Its crew was calm. Its weapons were primed. Humanity had been silent for too long. Now they had returned, and the galaxy was about to learn the true meaning of fear. The HFY Dominion's second fleet traveled through the endless void of space, their ships moving in perfect formation. Hundreds of warships, armed with the most advanced technology in the galaxy, rushed toward Veltraxis 9, where the unknown enemy had struck. Admiral Xaran, an experienced warrior, stood on the bridge of the flagship Dreadfang, his crimson eyes fixed on the holographic display before him. His hands were clasped behind his back, his expression cold. He had fought many battles and crushed countless enemies. This would be no different. "Status report," he commanded. A junior officer responded quickly. "We will arrive at Veltraxis 9 in 5 standard minutes, Admiral." Xaran nodded. "And the enemy ship?" "Our long-range scans confirm that it is still in orbit above the planet," the officer said. He hesitated for a moment before adding, "It has not moved since our forces were destroyed." Xaran's eyes narrowed. Strange. If this unknown warship was truly powerful enough to wipe out a Dominion fleet, why had it not left? Why had it not advanced deeper into Dominion space? It was almost as if it was waiting for them. Xaran dismissed the thought. "Prepare all weapons. We will show these invaders the strength of the Dominion." The second fleet dropped out of hyperspace, emerging above Veltraxis 9 like a massive storm. The ruined planet below was still burning, its surface scarred by the earlier battle. And there, floating in the darkness, was the enemy warship. It was massive, larger than any Dominion battleship, yet somehow sleek and efficient. Its hull was a deep black, almost blending into space itself. Unlike Dominion ships, which carried bright energy signatures, this vessel was disturbingly silent. Xaran sneered. "One ship against an entire fleet. This will be over in minutes." He turned to his communications officer. "Send a message to the enemy vessel. Demand their surrender." The officer nodded and transmitted the message across all frequencies. "Unidentified vessel. This is Admiral Xaran of the HFY Dominion. You have attacked our world and destroyed our fleet. Surrender immediately or be annihilated." For a long moment, there was no response. Then a reply came through. The voice was calm, deep, unshaken. "This is the Terran warship Nemesis. Your threats mean nothing to us." Xaran's eyes widened slightly. "Terran, what is that?" Before he could respond, the voice spoke again. "You believe yourselves rulers of the galaxy. You believe your fleet is unstoppable. You are mistaken." Xaran growled. "Enough of this nonsense. Lock weapons on that ship and fire everything." Across the fleet, warships powered up their weapons. The night sky lit up as hundreds of plasma cannons, railguns, and missile launchers unleashed a devastating storm of firepower toward the lone enemy vessel. But then, something happened that should have been impossible. The nemesis did not move. It did not activate shields. It did not evade. It simply stood there, as if mocking the Dominion's attack. And when the Dominion's weapons struck, something terrifying occurred. The attacks disappeared. The plasma blasts vanished inches before impact. The missiles detonated prematurely, as if they had struck an invisible barrier. The railgun rounds never reached their target. The bridge of the Dreadfang was silent. Officers stared at their screens, confused and horrified. What just happened?" Xaran demanded. The ship's science officer stammered. "Admiral, our weapons had no effect." Xaran's mind raced. How was this possible? Dominion weapons were designed to tear through planetary shields, to destroy entire cities in seconds. And yet, against this one ship, they had done nothing. Then, the nemesis moved. It was not a slow advance. It was not a calculated maneuver. It was instant. One moment, it was floating motionless. The next, it had closed the distance between them in the blink of an eye. Xaran barely had time to react before a single blue light appeared on the nemesis's hull. A beam of energy, precise and controlled, lanced forward. The Dominion battleship Wrathborn, one of the largest vessels in the fleet, was hit directly in the center. There was no explosion, no violent blast. The ship simply ceased to exist. Gasps filled the bridge of the Dreadfang. Xaran's heart pounded in his chest. What kind of weapon was that? Before he could give an order, the nemesis spoke again. "Leave, now, or be erased." For the first time in his life, Admiral Xiren felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. Admiral Xiren stood frozen on the bridge of the Dreadfang, his mind struggling to process what had just happened. In mere seconds, the nemesis had erased one of the Dominion's most powerful warships, without effort, without sound, without even a visible explosion. The Wrathborn was simply gone. The crew around Xiren were panicked. Officers shouted over one another, trying to explain what had happened. Scanners showed no debris, no energy residue, nothing. It was as if the battleship had never existed. Xiren clenched his fists, forcing himself to stay calm. He was a veteran, a warrior of the Dominion. Fear was not an option. "Regroup the fleet," he barked. "Do not fire unless I give the order. I want a full analysis of that attack. Now." His officers scrambled to obey. But deep down, Xiren knew the truth. They had never faced anything like this before. The nemesis moves again. The nemesis remained still for a moment, as if watching the fleet. Then it moved. One instant, it was in front of them. The next, it was behind them. It had crossed the entire battlefield in a blink. Gasps filled the bridge. No ship should be that fast. Dominion vessels relied on hyperdrives for interstellar travel, but even the most advanced ships could not move like this in normal space. This defied logic. Xiren's second-in-command, Commander Relos, turned to him with wide eyes. "Admiral, what do we do?" Xiren took a deep breath. "We establish contact again. We need to understand what we're dealing with." The Admiral stepped forward, his voice steady. "Open a channel." A moment later, the nemesis responded. The same deep, calm voice filled the bridge. "You were warned." Xiren gritted his teeth. "This is Admiral Xiren of the HFY Dominion. Identify yourselves immediately. What is your purpose here?" Silence. Then the voice spoke again. "You do not remember us, but we remember you." Xiren frowned. "What do you mean?" The voice was cold. "You exiled us. You erased us from history. But we survived. And now, we have returned." A chill ran down Xiren's spine. Exiled. Erased. He had studied Dominion history for years. There was no record of a species called terran. No record of any banished race. Lies. He spat. "The Dominion has ruled for centuries. If your kind were ever part of history, we would know." The voice on the nemesis remained calm. "Then let us remind you. The battle begins." Without warning, Nemesis fired again. Another blue beam of energy lanced out, striking the Dominion destroyer. Like the Wrathborn, the ship simply vanished. Panic erupted across the fleet. Some ships broke formation, their captains desperate to escape. Xiren saw the chaos spreading and knew he had only seconds to act. All ships returned fire. Now, the sky exploded with energy as the entire Dominion fleet opened fire. Plasma cannons, rail guns, missile barrages, all directed at the nemesis. But the nemesis did not move. It did not evade. It did not shield itself. Instead, the same impossible event happened again. The attacks vanished. Plasma bursts faded into nothing. Missiles detonated before reaching the target. Railgun slugs never landed. And then, the nemesis counterattacked. Instead of firing another energy beam, the nemesis deployed drones, small black spheres that moved faster than the eye could track. These drones weaved through the Dominion fleet like silent predators, dodging weapons fire effortlessly. Then, one by one, they attached themselves to Dominion warships. Xiren barely had time to react before the drones activated. A single pulse of energy erupted from each drone, and the ships they touched simply shut down. Engines failed. Shields collapsed. Weapons powered down. Within moments, half the Dominion fleet was drifting helplessly in space. A Dominion captain's voice screamed through the comms. Our systems are dead. We've lost all power. We can't move. The realization hit Xiran like a thunderbolt. The nemesis wasn't just stronger, it was playing with them. The final warning. The voice from the nemesis returned, calm as ever. Leave now, or suffer the same fate as your fallen ships. Xiran felt a wave of rage and helplessness. The Dominion had never suffered such a total and effortless defeat. He had never lost a battle before. But today, he had no choice. He turned to his officers, ordered the retreat. There was hesitation, but Xiran's expression left no room for argument. The command was relayed, and the surviving ships powered up their hyperdrives, fleeing the battlefield in disgrace. As the fleet vanished into hyperspace, Xiran took one last look at the nemesis. It remained still, watching. The message was clear. The Dominion was no longer untouchable. Admiral Xiran sat alone in his personal chamber aboard the Dreadfang. The room was dark, the only light coming from the holographic display in front of him. His mind was in turmoil. The Second Fleet had been humiliated. The nemesis had crushed them without suffering a single scratch. It had wiped ships from existence, disabled an entire fleet in seconds, and then allowed them to flee, as if the battle had been nothing but a warning. But what disturbed Xiran the most were the words of the Nemesis' commander. You do not remember us, but we remember you. You exiled us. You erased us from history. Xiran clenched his fists. Was it true? Had the Dominion hidden something? He turned back to the holographic screen. He had ordered a deep search of the Dominion's ancient records, hoping to find any mention of the word terran. At first, there was nothing. No race by that name, no history, no war records. But then, after forcing access to restricted archives, something appeared. A single classified file, locked behind the highest security clearance. The title read, Project Extinction, the Terran Campaign. Xiran's breath caught in his throat. Terrans. The name was real. With a few quick commands, he bypassed the security protocols and opened the file. The Forgotten War. The screen flickered, showing an ancient war record dating back over 5,000 cycles, before the Dominion had fully conquered the galaxy. There, written in faded letters, was a name he had never seen before. The Terran Federation. Xiran leaned forward, reading in stunned silence. Long ago, before the Dominion ruled, the Terrans were one of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. They were different from other species. They were not the strongest, nor the fastest, nor the most intelligent. But they were the most adaptable, the most resilient, the most relentless. The records described a war between the Dominion and the Terrans, a war that had nearly ended in disaster for the Dominion. Despite being outnumbered, the Terrans refused to surrender. Their technology advanced at an unnatural speed. Every time they lost a battle, they adapted. Every time the Dominion believed they were defeated, they came back stronger. The war lasted for decades. In the end, the Dominion only won through one desperate act, a final brutal attack that wiped out Earth, the Terran homeworld. The last of the Terrans were hunted down. Any records of them were erased. Their name was forbidden in history. The Dominion believed they had destroyed the Terrans forever. But they were wrong. Xiran's hands trembled as he realized the truth. The Terrans had survived. Somehow, somewhere, they had rebuilt, and now they were back. The High Council reacts. Hours later, Xiran stood before the High Council on Sci-Fi Prime. The chamber was silent as he finished presenting his report. The council members sat in disbelief, their eyes filled with unease. High Lord Valcor, the leader of the Dominion, finally spoke. "This is impossible," he said. "The Terrans were exterminated." Xiran shook his head. "We assumed they were, but the nemesis proves otherwise. They are alive, and their technology is beyond anything we have ever seen." Another council member, Lord Trelvok, leaned forward. "Are they seeking revenge?" Xiran hesitated before answering. I don't know. They could have destroyed us completely. But they didn't. Velkor's eyes narrowed. Then we must strike before they do. Siren's heart pounded. My lord, that would be a mistake. We don't understand their full strength. If we act without caution, we might trigger a war that we cannot win. Velkor's voice turned cold. The Dominion does not bow to fear. If the Terrans survived, we will finish what we started. He turned to the War Council. Prepare the Imperial Army. Every warship we have will be sent to hunt them down. Katerin felt a sinking feeling in his chest. He knew that was exactly what the Terrans wanted. And for the first time in his life, he feared that this was a war the Dominion would not win. Meanwhile, aboard the Nemesis, deep in the cold void of space, the Nemesis floated silently. Inside, Captain Elias Grant watched a screen displaying Dominion fleet movements. His expression was calm, but his blue eyes held a storm of emotions. A voice spoke beside him. The Dominion is preparing for war. Elias nodded. As expected. Another officer frowned. We could have destroyed them already. Why let them prepare? Elias smiled slightly. Because fear is a powerful weapon. He turned toward the main screen, where the HFY Dominion's core worlds were displayed. For centuries, they believed they were untouchable. He clenched his fist. Now, they know the truth. He glanced at his crew. Send a message to High Lord Velkor. A transmission was sent, broadcasting across the Dominion's highest frequencies. A simple message. We remember everything, and we are coming. The HFY Dominion had never known fear. For centuries, their rule was absolute. They had conquered countless worlds, crushed rebellions before they could rise, and erased entire species that stood against them. But now, for the first time in history, the Dominion was afraid. The Nemesis was no ordinary warship. It was a ghost from the past, a nightmare reborn. The mysterious Terrans, thought to be extinct, had returned, stronger, faster, and more advanced than ever before. And now, they had declared war. The Dominion strikes first. On the bridge of the Dreadfang, Admiral Xirin stood before a holographic projection of the Dominion's Supreme War Council. High Lord Velkor stared down at him, his voice filled with authority. The Imperial Armada is assembled. Over 10,000 warships stand ready. The Terrans will be wiped from existence once and for all. Xirin hesitated. My lord, we do not yet know their full strength. The Nemesis destroy our fleet without effort. If they have more ships like it. Velkor's eyes narrowed. Then we will crush them with overwhelming numbers. Xirin clenched his fists. The Dominion was making a mistake. But he was a soldier. And orders were orders. He turned toward the bridge crew. Prepare the fleet. We move to Sector 14, where the Nemesis was last seen. Across the galaxy, thousands of Dominion warships jumped into hyperspace, heading toward war. Aboard the Nemesis, on the command deck of the Nemesis, Captain Elias Grant watched as reports came in. The Dominion fleet has mobilized, said Commander Sarah Holt, his second in command. They're coming for us. Elias nodded. As expected. Another officer, Lieutenant Darren Cole, frowned. They outnumber us 1,000 to 1. Shouldn't we retreat? Elias smiled slightly. No. Sarah smirked. They don't understand yet. Numbers don't matter. Elias walked toward the central screen, displaying the massive Dominion fleet approaching their location. He turned to his crew. Prepare the trap. The ambush. The Dominion fleet dropped out of hyperspace near an abandoned star system. Thousands of warships spread into formation, weapons armed, ready for battle. But the Nemesis was nowhere to be seen. Admiral Xirin frowned. Where are they? His tactical officer scanned the area. No signs of enemy ships, just an asteroid field. Velkor's voice crackled through the command channel. Do not be fooled, Admiral. The Terrans are hiding. Destroy the entire field if necessary. Xirin hesitated. Something felt wrong. Then, the attack began. From the darkness of space, the terrans struck. Hundreds of black, silent warships emerged from behind asteroids, their engines leaving no energy trace. Terran stealth technology was beyond anything the Dominion had ever seen. Before the Dominion could react, blue energy beams sliced through their fleet. One by one, Dominion warships vanished, erased from existence. Panic erupted. We're under attack. Terran turned to his crew. All ships, return fire. Dominion cannons lit up the void, but their weapons were useless. The Terran warships moved faster than thought, dodging attacks with impossible precision. And then, the nemesis arrived. The wrath of humanity. A colossal rift in space opened, and the nemesis emerged, silent, dark, and unstoppable. Terran felt a chill run down his spine. Then a voice filled every Dominion ship. A single message. We are humanity, and we remember. The nemesis fired. A blue pulse of energy expanded outward. Every Dominion ship touched by the pulse shut down instantly. Weapons, engines, shields, everything. Thousands of warships floated helplessly in space. Terran's heart pounded. This is impossible. He turned to his officers. Hyperdrive. Now. But it was too late. The nemesis spoke again. Surrender. For the first time in Dominion history, a fleet was completely defeated without a single shot landing on the enemy. They had lost. And now, the fate of the Dominion was in the hands of the Terrans. The Dominion fleet was broken. The great Sci-Fi armada, once feared across the galaxy, now floated powerless in space. Thousands of warships had been disabled in an instant. Their engines were dead, their weapons useless. The proud warriors of the Dominion sat helplessly in their ships, staring at the massive Terran warship before them. The nemesis stood in the center of the battlefield, untouched, undefeated, unstoppable. Aboard the Dreadfang, Admiral Xiren felt his throat tighten as he watched his fleet fall apart. This was not just a loss. It was humiliation. Power systems are down. Shields offline. A panicked officer shouted. Xiren turned toward his tactical officer. How did they do this? The officer shook his head. Unknown, Admiral. Their technology is beyond anything we've ever seen. A cold voice filled the bridge. Admiral Xiren. The voice echoed across every Dominion ship. It was a transmission from the nemesis. Xiren clenched his fists. He recognized the voice. Captain Elias Grant. The same man who had single-handedly crushed the Dominion's fleet. You have lost, Elias continued. Surrender now, and your people will live. Xiren gritted his teeth. Surrender. The Dominion had never surrendered in its history. To do so now would be unthinkable. Before he could respond, another voice spoke over the transmission. It was High Lord Valkor. The last command. From the Dominion's homeworld, Valkor's voice rang with anger and pride. We will not surrender, he roared. We are the rulers of this galaxy. We will fight to the last ship, to the last soldier. We will. His words were cut off. A sudden explosion rocked the Dreadfang. The view screen shifted to show the Dominion homeworld, Zephyr Prime. And what they saw made everyone go silent. The wrath of Nemesis. A single Terran warship had entered orbit above Zephyr Prime. It was not firing any weapons. Instead, it released a pulse of energy that spread across the entire planet. And then, everything stopped. Every ship, every station, every weapon shut down instantly. The entire planet went dark. The mighty capital of the Dominion, the heart of its empire, was now completely powerless. Xiren felt a chill run down his spine. This was not war. This was absolute control. The Nemesis's voice returned. Your rule is over. Aboard the Nemesis, Elias Grant watched as the once mighty Dominion fell without a single shot fired. Commander Sarah Holt stepped beside him. It's over. Elias nodded. Yes. The Dominion is finished. Lieutenant Darren Cole exhaled. I still can't believe it. We defeated the most powerful empire in the galaxy without destroying them. Elias's eyes darkened. We were never here to destroy. Sarah looked at him. Then what is our next move? Elias turned back to the screen, watching the darkened planet below. The truth revealed. The transmission from the nemesis played once more, broadcasting across the galaxy. We are humanity. Elias said. We have returned, not for revenge, but for justice. He took a breath before continuing. Thousands of years ago, the Dominion tried to wipe us from history. You burned our worlds, erased our name, and thought we were gone. But you failed. We survived. We rebuilt. And now we are here, not to conquer, but to end the cycle of tyranny. He paused. The Dominion ruled through fear. We will rule through strength and wisdom. Sarah looked at him. What now? Elias exhaled. Now we give them a choice. He activated a command, sending a final message to every Dominion leader. The choice. You have two paths, Elias said. 1. Surrender, accept peace, and allow your people to live freely under a new order. 2. Resist, and watch your empire fade into nothing. Exaran sat frozen. The Dominion had never been given a choice before. Valakor, now powerless, was silent. The war was over. The new era begins. Across the galaxy, Dominion citizens watched in shock as their empire collapsed in a single day. For the first time, the galaxy was free. The terrans had returned, not to destroy, but to bring order. And as the nemesis vanished into the stars, one thing was clear. Humanity had become the true rulers of the galaxy. The HFY Dominion, the most powerful empire in the galaxy, had fallen. Their fleets were disabled, their homeworld was silent, and their leaders were defeated. But the terrans had not come for destruction. They had come for justice. Aboard the nemesis, Captain Elias Grant stood on the bridge, watching the screen. The once great Dominion worlds were now at peace. There were no more battles, no more invasions, only silence and uncertainty. Commander Sarah Holt approached him. The Dominion leaders have responded. Elias nodded. And Sarah glanced at her datapad. Some accept our terms. Others refuse to surrender. Elias sighed. I expected that. Lieutenant Darren Cole frowned. What do we do with the ones who refuse? Elias looked out into space. His voice was calm, but firm. We show them the future. The trial of the Dominion. Across the galaxy, Terran forces gathered Dominion leaders and brought them to the former capital, Zyphor Prime. Millions of beings from different planets watched as the trial began. The High Lords of the Dominion, the rulers who had enslaved entire worlds, now stood powerless before the Terrans. Elias spoke before the crowd. For centuries, the Dominion ruled with fear and violence. They crushed the weak, enslaved species and erased those who resisted. He looked at the Dominion leaders. But now you will face justice. Some leaders bowed their heads, accepting their fate. Others shouted in anger, refusing to accept defeat. One of them, Lord Valakor, stepped forward. His voice was full of rage. You think you can rule the galaxy. He spat. You think you are different from us. Elias looked at him. We are not here to rule. We are here to set things right. He turned to the people watching. We do not seek revenge. We do not seek to replace one empire with another. He raised his voice. We seek a new future, a future without tyranny, the birth of the Galactic Union. In the days that followed, the Terrans announced their plan. They would not conquer the galaxy. Instead, they would create a new alliance, a council of worlds where every species had a voice. The Galactic Union was born. The former Dominion planets were given freedom. The Dominion military was disbanded. And for the first time in history, the galaxy was united. The legacy of humanity. Aboard the Nemesis, Elias and his crew watched as the first meeting of the Galactic Union began. Sarah smiled. "I never thought I'd see this in my lifetime." Darren chuckled. "We just defeated an empire without firing a single shot at their homeworld. I'd say this is a good day." Elias nodded. "It's only the beginning." Sarah looked at him. "And what about us? What about the nemesis?" Elias took a deep breath. Their mission was complete. "The nemesis will disappear," he said. "We were never meant to rule." He turned to his crew. "We came from the darkness of history, and now we return to it." As the Galactic Union took its first steps, the nemesis and its fleet vanished into the stars, leaving behind only a legend. Epilogue. A New Dawn. Years later, in a distant part of the galaxy, a child sat by a campfire, listening to an elder's story. "Tell me again about the humans," the child asked. The elder smiled. "They were the ghosts of the past, the forgotten ones. The Dominion thought they had been erased." He looked up at the stars. "But when the galaxy needed them most, they returned." The fire crackled, and the elder's voice became soft. "No one knows where they went. Some say they watch over us from the shadows. Some say they wait for the day they are needed again." The child's eyes were wide. "Will they ever return?" The elder smiled. "Only if the galaxy forgets the lesson they taught us." As the flames flickered, the stars above seemed to shine a little brighter, as if humanity was still watching.